Hello, this is Ian Noel Camalotis, and I'm here at AlleyCat Comics, and this is Chatterbox. So today I'm here with comic artist Daniel Johnson, who has a comic that's coming out. Could you tell us the name of the comic book?
The title is A Space Mullet. Like hair. Space Mullet.
Gotcha. This isn't a new comic, though. This has been online, a webcomic that you've had for how many years now?
Since 2012, yeah.
2012. What other comic series have you done?
Well, it started with Space Mullet in 2012, where it was just me putting pictures on my website, comic pages. Since then, in 2013, I did a story with Dark Horse, EVE Online, the video game. I did a comic book of that. And that was written by Daniel Way. And then in 2014, almost all of 2014, I was working on The Ghost Fleet with Dark Horse Comics as well, with Donnie Cates, who was writing that. And there were 8 issues of that came out. And then since then, I've been doing some random stuff. I did a few covers. I did a single issue for Marvel for one of their S.H.I.E.L.D. books.
I remember that one.
That was really fun. I got to draw Captain America getting thrown up on. That was really fun. Hopefully that's a first in the Marvel universe. And then
Could be.
Yeah, and then now I finished drawing it, but it's coming out right now. Alabaster, the Good, the Bad, and the Bird by Caitlin R. Kiernan is coming out right now. So issue 2, I think, just hit the stands, and but I'm finished drawing that. So, yeah.
You seem to really like comic books. What got you into becoming an artist and illustrator?
Probably the first exposure I had to comics that made me want to draw was maybe Calvin and Hobbes. I read those when I was really little. I saw them at the library, and I couldn't get enough of them. And I read them every day, all day. And then soon after that, like my dad showed me Star Wars, and that even fueled my creative energies more. And then Star Wars and Calvin and Hobbes led me to more things like Bone, like the comic Bone by Jeff Smith. That was a huge influence on me, and so just kind of kept leveling up in different comic experiences until I finally decided that I wanted to do it myself. So I've been drawing that whole time. Yeah.
What are some of your artist inspirations in the comic world, or in general, really?
That's a great question. There's so many. So obviously Bill Watterson, huge influence. The way that he draws his action. If you'll notice, sometimes when like Hobbes jumps out the door at Calvin, Hobbes' body will actually be like elongated, and I was able to notice that even as a kid, and I would try to mimic that in my drawings to try and like stretch and bend the human form past what it's supposed to do.
Almost like like when they're doing the animations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I got to kind of figure that out. So I really loved that. Other artists, so of course Jeff Smith. I'm thinking really early along in my life, like things that made me want to draw, and that turned into different things. Like I remember reading a lot of Joe Mad's Battle Chasers. That was huge, like in high school. Let's see, Chris Bacalo. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. But reading some of his X-Men comics, and his steampunk comic was a big influence as well. And this is all kind of like high school area, and then in college, I started reading other stuff. But there's so many artists that I would consider influencing me. A lot of those artists made me who I am now, and I continually am looking at artists now to become better or level up. I'm not sure. I mean,
improving your craft, because you
Yeah.
want to get a little bit of because all artists draw off each other, so that's
It's true. And when I see an artist who's drawing comics today bringing their A game, it kind of gets me revved up to like, okay, well, this guy's awesome. I need to really hit the mat here. I need to really go to town. I feel that way when I read anything by Otomo, so Akira. Even reading old Akira comics, they're made in the 80s, but I still, like, I read them now and I'm like, it's such an inspiration, like, so oh my gosh, I have to get better. Same thing with, like, Sean Gordon Murphy. So, like, reading Tokyo Ghost, I get really mad because I'm like, he's so good, so I need to work harder now, because now I see, like, how much time and effort he's putting into those pages, so it's like, okay, Dan, it's time to, it's like one big ass kick, which is a good thing.
you always want to step up your game, just like you were saying earlier. Have you thought about animating at all?
I have thought about it a little bit, but I remember I was reading, I was listening to a podcast where there was an animator who was on the Beauty and the Beast team, but he wasn't like animating the Beast or a wolf or anything cool like that. He was only responsible for the villagers at the end of the scene with the pitchforks. They want to kill the Beast. And there's like 100 people there, and he's responsible for all these little figures. And in order for him to be able to like do the cool stuff, he had to like animate all the regular things. And I have a fair amount of patience when it comes to art, but I don't have that much patience. And just like it's so much work. If I was to draw somebody, or if I was to animate somebody like swinging a baseball bat, it takes so much work to do that one scene. Not even a scene, just half
the action.
It's that I'm sure it would be a great learning experience, but it's not something that I would want to become a master at. I sound so lazy.
No. Thinking about it now, because especially thinking about the old hand-drawn 2D cartoons back in the day, and a lot of them are still around. It takes a while to do those, so it's like now even with the added technology, that's every small detail you have to do.
And even like Studio Ghibli, like Spirited Away or Princess Mononoke, they do it old school. Like
they still do 2D.
It's just like he's got like these men and women just drawing on pads of paper for hours and hours, not going home, bringing their sleeping bags with them. Sleeping in the office, then waking up in 2 hours to keep on working. It's crazy.
That reminds me, because you had said before the last time we were chatting that you had gone to Japan and went to visit Studio Ghibli?
I went to see the museum, yeah.
What did you learn from there? Anything that inspired you also?
It was really cool. It was like it was almost made more for like children. There was like a flying cat bus that the flying cat bus. So they had like a huge like cat bus that kids could just jump on, but it was huge. It was like half the size of the store, and kids could just jump on it and hang out and have fun. And there's like winding staircases that you can go up. There are paper animations, like actual pieces of paper that move in like a little display case that you can see like in a dark room. You can't take any photographs. It was really magical. So if anything, it kind of like woke me up to the fact that like the museum is like pure artist's vision, like unadulterated, just like exactly what the artist wanted. I don't think you see a ton of that in the States, of just what the artist wants and that's it. So that was really cool to see, and it was also inspirational just because it was so magical. You get there and you feel like you're in another dimension. And the big robot from Laputa, like the castle in the sky.
Yeah, the big castle itself with the legs and everything.
So when you go like up to the third floor through this like winding staircase that's like in a castle inside the museum. You're going up this winding staircase. You get up to the top floor. You go past this huge cat bus. So you're already kind of like, man, where am I? You go outside out into like this rooftop terrace. Then you go up another winding staircase that is encased in like leaves. So you're like walking up, and then after you get out of that staircase, you're on the very top. You're like on the roof of the museum. You walk out of the staircase, and there is this it must have been at least 15, 18 feet tall. Just this huge robot, like the size that it was in the movie.
That's a lot of... they have that full-bodied...
It is...
They really captured a lot of the characters there.
Yeah. And he's in like a field too, so he's like kind of mixed with like green and like nature.
Oh, so it's not even just, oh, here's like a fake. They actually put it in.
They put it in like purposefully, and there's like grass growing out of its feet and stuff.
Wow.
I get really excited just talking about it, you know.
Now, next time you're gonna have to bring me. 'Cause I need to take a look. Oh wow. So what were some of your aspirations when you're going through college then, going back, that you wanted to do, your goals?
In related to comics?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't actually go to school to be a comic artist. My parents really wanted me to get a degree that I could, have a job after school, so I couldn't just major in art. I majored in art education, so I was going to be an art teacher. But in Illinois, you can't specialize in like high school art, or it's kindergarten through 12th grade. So I took all these teaching courses on how to teach kids from like kindergarten through high school, and then some art, so not a ton of art. And I didn't really like teaching when I did it in school, like student teaching. And then I actually got a job after college teaching, and I hated it even more. So I decided to quit teaching and try and do comics. This is great life advice. Anybody listening?
We'll get to that later.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, it worked out, but yeah. I wouldn't have worked unless I had a wife who was like willing to take a full-time job while I tried to do the comic
Focus
thing.
on your comics. Okay.
So,
did you have any goals to work for Marvel or DC, any of the big giants, on a regular basis or permanently?
honestly, it was so far out of the realm of like my own possibility in my own head. It's like, oh, would you like to work for Marvel? That's never going to happen. So let's just put that in the closet and not look at it. Because I wanted it, but it's like, oh, you have to be in that world. You have to know people, and it didn't really occur to me that I just had to work at it and work at it and work at it. And a lot of that is the internet has made it possible for people to see my work without me really having to talk about it or network. If the quality is there, I'm not saying my work is that great, but if you put something up on the internet that is really of quality, people do take notice, and it's a great way to start getting to know people and to get your work seen. And after that's what happened with Space Mullet. I put Space Mullet up, and then people were like, "Oh, this is kind of cool." And when I started Space Mullet, it was pretty bad. Like the first few pages, it makes me sweat a little bit because I was still learning,
But after all these years, you get to see the growth and all.
Well, and I was putting 2 pages up a week, so it's not like I'm cramming up a bunch of pages in a month. So it'd be like 4 pages a month. No, however many. 2 times 4, 8 pages a month. But that's the rate of getting better. It's over a period of like 2.5 years. But when you're looking at the pages, you're like, wow, he's like transforming before my eyes.
It's multiple artists working on this. No, it's just you.
Well, if you look at like the beginning strips of Calvin and Hobbes, Calvin and Hobbes look completely different.
Yeah.
And the style is wildly different, and it changes and it evolves over time. So mine is the same way. It just happens way faster.
Well, since we're talking about, especially with Space Mullet coming out, how did you get the idea? What inspired you to start up that kind of a story? And could you tell us a little bit more about what it's about?
Yeah. The elevator pitch is that it's like Big Trouble in Little China meets Starship Troopers. That's an ex-Marine, a space Marine. His name's Jonah.
Mix.
Yeah, he's the one with the mullet. And he has kind of a sordid past. He's kind of ashamed, but we don't really know what's going on. And he has an alien co-pilot named Alpheus, and they traverse the galaxy together. It's fairly derivative, but again, still didn't really know what I was doing when I started, and I kept trying to design like really cool, like badass, like sci-fi heroes with like a scar over his face, big jaw, and it always felt so impersonal. Like if it is in the future, there's got to be guys who have like weird kind of like haircuts and pot bellies, and so I made Jonah, who is kind of he's kind of chubby and he's awkward, and he was in the Marines, but he still can't really shoot like
Anything.
The
stormtrooper from Star Wars.
Kinda, yeah. So I like put like a loser, and I put him into like a space adventure role. So kind of like Han Solo, but if Han Solo was like fat and a loser, if that makes sense. And well, because I never could connect to Han Solo as a kid. Like I thought he was awesome, but I was like, yeah, okay, he's gonna rock everything. He's had problems in the past, but no big deal. And I wanted somebody who would be like, yeah, I really don't know if this guy's going to make it. He's kind of a loser. And he's probably going to say the wrong thing, and he's probably going to get everybody in trouble. In fact, I have the next Space Mullet story arc, where it's very dark and intense right now. But the next one is basically around how Jonah spills coffee on the controls of the ship, and it crash lands, and they have to deal with it.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Well, that's just the whole setup. So, and then it just goes on from there.
So then, how did you get your webcomic now to become an actual comic book? Were you approached by the company, or?
Dark Horse came to my booth at C2E2 in 2013, and it was it was the editor for all the Mass Effect comics at the time. He did all of the comics for the other properties. So this would be like Alien, like Mass Effect, Star Wars. He was working on those books. And his name was Dave Marshall. He was really nice. He came up, started flipping through his pages. And I didn't see what his badge was because his badge was flipped around. So it just looked like a regular C2E2 badge, like some random guy. And then he leaned over and his badge flipped around. And it said Dark Horse Editor on it. And I was like, I tried to keep my cool, but I was like, your hands start sweating on the inside really bad.
Yeah, getting nervous.
Yeah, and I'm like, hey, how's it going, man? Yeah, totally. Take your time. Just look around. Just let me know if you have any questions. And he was really nice. And he said, this stuff is really great. Have you ever thought about publishing it? And I'm like, yes, actually. With Dark Horse, I've dreamed it many times. He's like, great, here's my card. Shoot me an email and we'll talk. And we developed a relationship online for a little while. And then about a year later, he's like, hey, let's submit this. Let's put this through. Let's get it published. So, thanks, Dave. He's now the editor-in-chief at Dark Horse too. So,
you got his connection right here.
But now it's now we have this email connection where I'm like, Dave, I think I made a spelling error on page 25. So it's pretty regular.
Gotcha.
No more hand sweats.
So now this is going to all comic shops nationwide,
yeah.
especially here at AlleyCat.
Well,
AlleyCat
hopefully
Comics.
nationwide. I'm wondering how many comic shops are going to order a title called Space Mullet.
Well, when is the release day for it?
March 16th.
So it's coming up soon.
I know, it is. I'm getting the hand sweats, actually.
So March 16th is the release day, and you'll be able to pick it up at your local comic store. You better start ordering it now if they don't have it.
The final order cutoff might have already happened. I'm not sure. I'm kind of not letting myself think about it because I don't want to know what the numbers are because I'm scared. But yeah, it's in the November. It's in the November issue of previews on page 50. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, before we end up here, what kind of advice now? I know we were talking about it earlier, but what advice can you offer to artists that want to follow your path, that either have a webcomic or are hoping to get lucky and meet an editor of a comic book company, or if they just want to publish their own thing and get their names out there?
Well, I'd say that the number one thing an editor or any comic book company is looking for is quality. And not only quality, but something that has a unique voice. So that means drawing every day and making your enhancing your skill, but at the same time, also being being yourself. Because I remember I would look at Joe Mad's artwork and I would literally just copy everything that he did, all his hands, all his eyes, all his noses, everything that he did, I would do. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it's important, as a comic artist or as an artist, trying to break into the industry. People want to see new things, and they want to feel like it's like a breath of fresh air almost when they see somebody's style that's new. So I would say I would encourage, when you draw something, you can take all your influences, but draw how you would draw. Try and pretend.
Put your own personality. You want to put your own
Pretend
personality.
nobody else is watching. If nobody else saw this ever and you just wanted to have fun, how would you draw this? That's important, and then you bring a level of professionalness to it and your own voice, and you're going to have something that people are going to want to take notice and put that online. Get on Twitter, get on Instagram, start posting, Tumblr, and just have fun with it. Try not to take it too seriously, and then you never know, somebody might come knocking. So that's all I can say, and I wish them luck.
Well, what about the storyline aspect? Because you write the story also
Yes.
for Space Mullet. So first of all, how did you come up with the story, and how is that what difficulties do you run into? Because you're an illustrator and now you're also writing the story as well. You have two focuses.
I mean, I think it can be anything from as serious as I want to say something about the world that I live in, and I can do it through narrative fiction, like comics, or I want to draw tanks, and I need to have an excuse to draw tanks in a comics story, so I'm going to have a story around, and it can be as simple as that, like a little story, and it can be fun. And there are ways to put different things that you're feeling into that. As that's why I love comics, because you can say a lot of different things while also being like really awkward and nerdy about it, and it's okay. But like in Space Mullet, like I wanted to kind of think about like death and like things that just happen suddenly. And if you have a story where you introduce a new character, usually that character has at least a few episodes to exist in the world. But what happens if a character just doesn't happen? And how does that affect the rest of the world? And so little things like that, and you can take small questions and you can start asking yourself more questions about that one question and building from there, and making a world and making characters that respond in a real way. So honestly, like I start with a scenario and then I kind of let my characters and their own personality tell me what they would do. And after you write your characters for a while, they'll start telling you what to do and what story to write.
Gotcha. Well, before we do head out, is there anything else you want to tell the audience?
Thank you for listening. You can check out my work anywhere online if you just Google. Don't Google that. My name's too long. Google Space Mullet, and then you will be able to find my work that way.
And if your comic shop doesn't have it already, make sure you ask him for it. It's Space Mullet. Should be. It's out in March.
16th. March 16th.
March 16th.
With Dark Horse Comics.
Yes. And especially if you're here in the Andersonville area, we've got AlleyCat Comics that's going to have... there's a signing, too, isn't there?
I'm sure that we can organize something, yeah.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much, Daniel.
Thank you, man.
Good luck with it, and looking forward to reading the comic.
Thank you.
Well, this is Ian Camalotis, and thank you for watching.